Yeah, g'day everyone and welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winnie and Clarkey, here to break down all the round 20 action in our recap show. It was another great round of footy and we're going to break it all down for you right here live all over social media. Of course, we are a live show, so please do get involved in the comments. Before we get to all of that, let me welcome in the founder of TryPod to say g'day and recap his best bets. Winnie, how are you going, my man?
G'day everyone, I'm all right, thanks. We'll try and make it a fast pod because it is a bit late. We had a good round. I mean, two best bets that won as comfortably as you like, winning by more than 2 tries, a mixed matchup that won 40 points to 8, and one best bet that lost narrowly. So 2 and 1, won the mixed matchup and won another same game 2 weeks in a row, 850 that was on the Storm Roosters game too. But of course, knowing me, I've got to have a little whinge about the one loss, but I'll do that when we get to the Tigers game.
Awesome, mate. And Clarkey's collect was no better this week, guys. My apologies there. It misses by a significant margin. And I fell into the trap, Winnie, that you've previously told me, but it's one of those things you've got to learn the hard way, where if you miss a good bet on a team the week before, which I did, I got greedy and included Fafita anytime try against an Eels line that was covered with relative ease. I went searching for the same bet a week later. And yeah, mistake learned there, and hopefully better with the future tipping there. So Clarkey's collect doesn't cash this week. Sorry, guys. But we'll move into the round. Game one.
You know that meme with the guys all with the nooses around their neck on the boat, and he looks over and says, first time? That was kind of like Clarkey saying to me, man, I'm so disappointed in my best bet. I made a mistake, you know, and I'm just like, you'll get used to it.
Oh, 100%, mate. It's now when you message me and you say you're disappointed, I've got a newfound appreciation for that, because I genuinely am disappointed in myself for falling for that trick. But yeah, mate, live and learn, and hopefully we'll get back on track with Clarkey's collect next week, get it up over the double-digit units. Game one, mate. Raiders beat Warriors 20 points to 18 in Canberra. I did have the Warriors head-to-head for my tip preview show, and another game this year where goal kicking hurts. You go to the Rabbitohs last round, you go to the Eels versus Manly earlier this round, and the importance of goal kicking. Although NRL players are, go into the post-game interviews and they say, oh, I've got a newfound appreciation for it and stuff. It's important because they did score more tries than the Raiders. Look, I do feel sorry for the Warriors in the sense here. They lost their fullback and their winger in this game, and it was only one game ago they lost their fullback and both wingers. So that's in 2 weeks, they've lost 5 of their back 3. Absolutely unfortunate there. So I do feel sorry for them in that respect. I'd almost go as far, Winnie, to say that Raiders didn't win this game. The Warriors lost it. But I don't want to be like, I don't want to come off like Billy Slater 2.0 playing with words. I'm just not certain the better side won here. I think the Warriors let themselves down with the goal kicking. Final takeaway for me, Jamal Fogarty. Huge difference for this Raiders side. And when I've tipped against the Raiders whilst he's out, I have used his kicking game as a factor, most notably not best bet that we got. And I didn't factor in his presence enough into this tip because he did kick over half a kilometre and he controlled the game very well with his boot. He was a huge inclusion for me. How did you see this one?
I was going to ask our audience too if the comments are any different. I couldn't find a solution. I tried to do some troubleshooting. So sorry, I think the comments are getting mashed up that you can see on the display. Goal kicking was important in the game that just ended half an hour ago, 20 minutes ago, Clarkey. We can talk about that. The Bulldogs, Matty Burton missing a couple of kicks and they lose by 2. But of course, that's the headline of this game because the Warriors scored more tries. We talked about going in, how important it was. It was basically a do or die match because I don't think New Zealand can recover now and make the finals. And that's on the heels of against the Bulldogs in extra time. The last time New Zealand played, it was the Raiders who exploded out of the blocks. We all needed that extra day to recover from that incredible Origin game. So we didn't get the kickoff for round 20 till Friday night. And what I did say in this game is I leaned to the Raiders and I would have played the Raiders if I could find -1.5. But it was only 2.5, 3.5, so I left it alone. So again, that's a good call to leave it. Unfortunately, some people messaged me on Friday and said, now you can get Raiders -1.5, but just to keep it simple to follow, I don't really add late best bets. You took that's the difference between winning or losing. Did you deserve to win? If you laid 1.5 with Canberra, not sure. I mean, a couple of players like Fogarty, Hudson Young had a massive game with a couple of tries, but of course it comes back to New Zealand against the odds, fighting back, scoring those tries, and those 3 second-half tries where Harris Tavita, I hate to single out a player who I know would be hurting, but every kick missed to the right. The first conversion missed badly to the right. So then, you've got to surely correct that a bit and miss again. And then the final one's basically in front and that you've mishit them to the right. So you just got to have such a high level of concentration just to steer that in. And you've got to hit it pretty badly to actually miss to the right from there. And that it's probably just wasn't New Zealand's year. After last year, things went their way. This year, too many narrow losses, while the Raiders remain in the hunt with belief, stopping a 4-match losing streak and with Fogarty back, belief that they could, shake things up, make it interesting in the home stretch.
Well said there. And Colt says as well, Wiles goal kicking. And, Colt is right. It wasn't technically Chanel Harris-Tavita's goal kicking. It's a team sport, but you can certainly see why people singled him out there. And Joshua from Instagram says, Fogarty's experience won them games earlier, but even he didn't think he'd be as dominant through his kicking game like he was on Friday night. Let's move to game 2, mate, where the Rabbitohs beat the Tigers 42 points to 18. Now, I didn't have a formal tip for this game on the preview show. I mentioned the Rabbitohs win with a few different try scorers as a possibility, but I didn't even back anything myself here, to be absolutely honest. For me, when I break down this game, we have two football sides who want to score their way to victory. And we know the elite sides, and I referenced the Storm, and that was later on this same day. They defend themselves to victory, holding a great side like the Roosters to low score. These teams want to score their way to victory, and it always makes for an interesting contest. It reminds me of the old NYC under-20s days. It is interesting that I referenced in the preview show, Winnie. I said, look, Tigers bounced back with 28 points against the Storm when they had a devastating loss the week before. They bounced back from a devastating loss with 28 points again. So a bit of a theme there for the Tigers. Probably a bit more impressive in this one, I would say. But I've got to go back to South Sydney and say this performance here doesn't change my mind around a South finals charge, which a lot of their fan base is believing at the moment. Their defense just isn't simply where it needs to be. And I know people will draw this as an outlier and say, well, this is just one game where they conceded 28, but their average points conceded across this entire season is 28. So it's bang on where they're at. And this was against a 17th ranked side. So I can see it winning. I don't think this is an outlier at all. But my final takeaway is actually a positive for the Tigers. I love the look of young Talon De Silva and Lachlan Galvin. Now, I know that we've heard it for a while for the Tigers. Believe in the future Tigers fans, it's going to turn around. But genuinely, with those two, I thought they played awesome, and there is some potential there to really take off in the next few years. What do you make of their performances in this game overall?
Yeah, the Tigers ripped in. I mean, Ryan comments he was very wrong. Hopefully, Ryan, I might have talked you out of an unders play in this game. This really bothers me, this game, for multiple reasons. My best bet was Tigers plus 10.5. Okay, when you have a team that is winning the game, a double-digit underdog, winning the game with 20 minutes to go, and you're catching double digits and you can't cover the line, like that hurts enough on its own. Like, we've never had that this season go the other way around. We've never had a team laying a lot of points and they're losing the game and then they score a bunch of late tries. Never happens. But that's kind of our season. I'm angry at myself. Let me actually start with that point because I chose the wrong best bet. Plus 10.5, I think should have won. The Tigers lost by 2 tries in this game, had a late lead. The game played out the way I thought it would. But that's what annoys me is I said on Thursday, I also strongly considered Tigers over 18.5 points. And even as I explained, taking the best bet plus 10.5, I feel like I contradicted myself because I said in this game, I feel like if you're not scoring, you'll be conceding. Like, I didn't trust the defense of either team. So you had to kind of figure if the Tigers didn't get over 18 points, it would be very unlikely they would cover the line, because were the Tigers ever going to really keep Souths, to 24 or less and like cover a low scoring game? I didn't see it. My mixed matchup, I had the first half of this game to outscore the Roosters for 80 minutes, and there were 40 points in the first half of this game. The Roosters only had 8, so we had an easy win there. But all I needed to do was, if I liked Tigers, which I did, and I liked overs, was to play Tigers over, and you would have had that covered by just after half time. What else annoys me? Last time I bet on Souths, we lose in a game where they scored the same number of tries, but no, or did they score one more? But in any case, they kicked 2 of 6, right? Souths kicked 2 of 6. They felt their best goal kicker was Cody Walker, and the next best was Tane Milne, and they kicked 2 of 6, and we lost the best bet by 2 points. And then this week they go to their third choice kicker, Damien Cook, who then kicks 7 in a row. And they weren't all in front either. They're out wide and stuff. So it's like, if you kind of swap the goal kicker and just say average goal kicking in both games, then I win both best bets. But instead, it's awful goal kicking last time, sensational goal kicking this time, and I lose both. So that, of course, that just annoys me so much. But yeah, neither team had desperation, but I expected that low stakes game, neutral venue. I give credit to the Tigers for, taking the game on. It's just typical West at the end, making mistakes when they were in front. The obligatory Tigers sin bin, and of course the back-breaking try when down a man that pushed the margin beyond 10 points.
And the Tigers sin bin has seriously become a theme of their season, which is unfortunate. Final point, mate. If only the Bunnies gave Damien Cook the kicking tee last round, they would now be on a 7-game winning streak, looking for 8 in a row next round.
Well, that's what I mean. How did they not know? Like, how did they not, it is pretty disappointing. Like, just give me a split in those games, but somehow we get extreme goal kicking really bad and then really good. And it, of course, makes sure the best bet doesn't get up. You said South, won't make the finals. The equation is they need 6 wins from the final 7. So this win, keeps it in their own hands. And of course, mathematically, they'd have to apply themselves more than they did in this game. But I still wouldn't completely rule Souths out, just because in a couple of weeks, Latrell, Cam Murray would be back in this team. And if they can win without those guys, then the belief would be there again. And they could definitely take it up a few notches. Just felt like this wouldn't be the spot.
Absolutely, mate. Fair few Doggies fans in the Instagram comments here debating the result of that game. Stay with us, guys. We will get to that game soon enough that we just saw there. But before we do so, let's move to game 3, where the Broncos beat the Knights 30 points to 14. And when we did our previous show, Winnie, I said this is a real wait and watch approach for me. We get all the Broncos players back except Selwyn Cobbo, who ironically seemed one of the least likely to back up. Paddy Carrigan recovers from the moon boot. Reynolds returns early. Walsh supposedly had all these injuries after Origin. They all play. When I did see they were all playing, and, usually on this show, if we tip something after the fact, we don't discuss it so much. But I think it's fair in this game because I did say wait and see. What I actually play here when Broncos half into a Walsh anytime try scorer. And I just felt that full strength in their forward pack again, or near enough to full strength, that Reece Walsh should be able to shine and have a great game. And people can criticize him for his Origin series, and I agree, it was not a good one by any stretch of the imagination. But in all 3 games, the key theme was Queensland lost the middle. Even with 12 men in game 1, the Blues beat them in the middle. They had the momentum there, right? And it's really hard for a fullback to get into the groove when their forwards aren't running the middle. The Broncos did that against the Knights side that really has struggled for the past 2.5 games now, dating back to that second half against the Raiders. I also thought Adam Reynolds was a huge inclusion. Just the confidence he gave people around him. Like, I thought the Broncos had built so many bad habits in their game that him returning wouldn't really change too much because of the errors they're making, the missed tackles and not defending their line like they did last year. But he brought a lot of confidence for everyone around him. This is a Knights side that, it's the last 3 now. They have really struggled. My final thought here, I suppose, is Bradman Best. Why did the Knights start him? I thought that was silly at kickoff, just because he did travel and do charity work in New South Wales the very next day after Origin. He didn't do recovery, or not a whole day of recovery, rather. He was out doing charity work. Thought they took a big risk there, and it hasn't paid off for them at all. So I thought that was a little bit silly for the Knights, and they'll have to pay that price now without Bradman Best for the next few weeks. How did you see this game, though, mate?
Yeah, Ryan comments best gone for the season. I hadn't seen that news, so I don't know if that's speculation, Clarkey, or if that's kind of
speculation. That's not confirmed yet.
Yeah, but massive dice roll, of course, playing best, and he had to get stitches in the face, which I thought just for, feasibly, it's hard to really expect him to back up, and he's had the game of his life, but it was such an important game. So that's why they all backed up, apart from Cobbo, on both sides. And I guess there was a lot of doubt about that. As we said, I wouldn't have backed Brisbane on Thursday because I thought Reece Walsh was so beat up and the Carrigan news wasn't promising. But when you hear they're playing, then I think you could still have played like a Brisbane -3.5. I still didn't think the result was assured by Brisbane playing the Stars because it was an act of desperation and you didn't know how much they'd have to give. And I felt like you could see Walsh, and I heard him interviewed at halftime, and he says, geez, I'm really sore. And it looked like he was labouring through the game. But make no mistake, he was absolutely unbelievable. And the game was probably a bit closer than the final score, but so many moments of class by Reece Walsh. He just took the game over. He was not going to let his team lose, whether it was with his own legs or sleight of hand, but getting defenders interested and then creating tries for others with some really classy touches. That's the Reece Walsh I've been waiting to see. And we got that one moment, which luckily was all we needed to cash a best bet first half versus Penrith. But Brisbane's missed him dearly through the origin period, through the 9-day stand down, which ended up covering 2 club games. Again, what Reynolds is back in time. Whether it's too late or not remains to be seen. But Brisbane's another side that definitely controls their own destiny. And as I said on Thursday, I feel like this is going to come down to the final couple of games, Dolphins, Storm, and Storm may be resting everyone. So Brisbane still has the belief they can mix it up with anybody. And if they play like they did on Saturday night, then they can score against anyone. And the defense actually was really good too for Brisbane, which was, lacking when I had them as a best bet against the Dragons. Even the 14 points Brisbane gives up, a couple of those tries are late when it was beyond doubt.
It's late in the season, but I'm certainly interested to see if the Broncos can maybe not build on, but at least maintain this form all the way to round 27. And if they do, I agree with you. If they don't make finals, they'll certainly upset a few sides along the way, in my opinion. Next game, mate, was in Melbourne. Storm beat the Roosters 24 points to 8. And when we did our previous show, I was looking at either side 1 to 12, and ultimately the odds weren't high enough, so I didn't bother tipping it. But I think that makes it even worse, to be honest, because the odds were that low, and that's what I was thinking. So a double L for me there. But a bit of a no-show for the Roosters, really, in a spot where they had every reason to turn up and try to prove their credentials, and they were in a great patch of form where they'd won their last 4 since having a down spot. I believe it was against the Cowboys was their last down spot. You go to them now, Winnie, they are 0-4 this year against top 4 opposition. And the only one of those games they were really close in was the Sharks' 38-30 loss at Magic Ground. And certainly if you want to be considered a premiership contender, you do not want to be conceding 30 points. I do wonder, are the Roosters in the same spot as the Warriors and Storm were last year, where they're too good for the rest of the comp, but they're not quite too good to beat the top teams? Could the Roosters be in that situation? I don't want to say so yet, because I still believe, I know they're 0-4 against top 4 sides here, but I still get the feeling they can beat anyone on their day. We just haven't seen their day yet. So maybe that's a little bit of fool's gold that I'm holding on to there, but I still believe it, man. Other point I had is Storm forwards. Now, they wanted to prove a point. The Roosters have a powerful forward pack with reps all throughout it, and this Storm forward pack, particularly their middles, has been the biggest doubt point for the Storm this year. They're lacking in the forwards. They don't have strong enough forwards. They can't win this year. Their forwards all stepped up and actually really took it to the Roosters in this one. And the other one, Grant Anderson, I know you took him as a try scorer in your better same-game multi, but in reality, that was his best NRL game by far. I've always looked at him as a solid depth option, but never a superstar, and he played like a superstar in this game. But my final takeaway, Winnie, you know it, never underestimate the Storm. What did I do? I underestimated the Storm, and it just makes me wonder, mate, why do I do this? Like, I know not to do it, but I don't know, maybe it's the inner gambler, mate, trying to take them on. I pay for it again, not getting the tip here for the Storm, who were marvelous in this game, mate.
Yeah, they were fantastic, and I did lean to Melbourne, so I could have gone the +2.5, as I mentioned on Thursday, but I ended up also, because I liked unders and seeing it as a tight game, playing Roosters under 24.5, which won equally easily. We won the same game multi again here, so I moved it from Friday to Saturday because this was the blockbuster of the round, and I liked the Storm in this game, and we did win it, a 3-leg multi as easily as you can. We had Anderson to score. Well, he gets a double and actually had a third try off an amazing grubber kick from Josh King, the greatest try assist that never was, because it was ruled back from a touch in the contest. We had Storm to lead any time. Well, Storm led it wire to wire and under 46.5 points. And even that final score, 24-8, and you referenced that you would have lost either 1 to 12. That would have been a bad beat because Sam Walker tried to put a grubber through the line on his own 30, and Farlongo just can't do anything but score tries. It hits him in the shins and goes and rebounds back, and Farlongo pounces on it. And he only played 4 minutes. He was only on at the very end and runs into try, which then makes it a 13-plus victory for Melbourne. So you had that, well done. If you had Storm 1-12, I don't know what to tell you. Because, how do we rate the Roosters here? I did feel as though it just wasn't their night. How many sin bins were there in this game? I think there were, like, Radley got a sin bin at one point. Connor Watson got a sin bin. But was there one? There was one back the other way for Melbourne as well at one stage. That was the key. That was the key time where the Roosters needed to, get back in the game, and Melbourne stood firm. But you talk about, people are questioning the credentials of the Roosters as being that bully side because they've got the most points scored in the comp. But as you say, they can't seem to beat the heavyweights. Like, played Penrith, no Cleary, still get blown out. It's like they're down like 16-0 early. This is another one. Melbourne, the Cronulla game. I guess the Roosters did. Bulldogs aren't top 4, sorry. But the other top 3 sides that Roosters have been unable to beat, and Melbourne still got Munster to come back in. I suppose you'd say Roosters also still have Manu. So Ali was finally back in this one. I felt like the Storm always had control and played an excellent game. Looked like a home team off a bye that was really determined to just continue that dominance. But I can't really put my finger on it. I just know that the Roosters were nowhere near their best. Therefore, I'm really not too worried about the Roosters. Probably, more Origin players backing up. It's not an easy one on a Saturday. And you go down to Melbourne, you're a little bit off, you're going to pay for it. So it was good to, again, win the mixed matchup by a mile, the best bet, and the same gamer again. And just a funny note that reminded me, my earlier same gamer, Winnie's Kitchen, which was 15-1. I really had a good read on the game, and I had either team to score over 18 points. I had Tigers within 10. But when the Tigers scored a try in the 55th minute to go in front, then you thought they would definitely cover plus 10. And my try scorer in the Tigers Bunnies game was Samuela Fainu, and it was actually his brother off the bench, Sione Fainu, who scored the try. So I know a bunch of people thought we've hit it here. They would have been brutally disappointed to find out it was the wrong S Fainu, but the line didn't end up getting covered because of that capitulation. So we gave a couple of same gamers a good shot, but at least one did get up at 850.
Yeah, the Winnie's Kitchen was super close as well. Especially like your point there that when you go to Melbourne, if you're a little bit off, you're in trouble. And the Roosters were definitely off. They didn't look themselves in this game at all. And
so I should mention too, because Grant Anderson was unreal, but he got injured at the very end of the game too. It looked bad. Have you heard prognosis on that one?
Bone bruising, I believe, at this stage. So the best case is he'll be out for weeks rather than months, which was what was initially feared. So still a bad injury, but best of the worst, I suppose. This next game, mate, Panthers beat the Dolphins 28 points to 26. And our prediction on the preview show, my prediction was Dolphins at the line plus 12.5. Yours was Dolphins at halftime plus 6.5. In the end, I actually did switch to your bet on a personal note, but both cover comfortably, which is awesome. And it feels like the last few times we have been super aligned on a game, it's played out as such. Probably the last time it hasn't was that Tigers and Titans game at Leichhardt there. I thought Isaiah Katoa was really great in this game. Like, I know he could have taken the field goal at one stage, and he's copping a lot of criticism for that. But I thought overall he had a great game for a 20-year-old there. And I just imagine, what if the Panthers did keep him? If they had found a way, or if they knew I was going to leave, could they have convinced him in some way to stay? Because if he was starting the season as Cleary's 5/8 next year, I believe the Panthers would almost be the same premiership favourite dollar value that they were these past few years. He's that good. Just thought that was a little interesting one there. And it was actually something I didn't really factor into my analysis for this game, that he is a junior and he has come through all the Panthers grades. And of course, he was not let go by the Panthers, but there was no pathway to the NRL for him. So he would have had a point to prove. And I certainly thought he played pretty well. In the end, in this game, I just think the Panthers shown their premiership experience in a few key positions, none more so than Nathan Cleary. Incredible. First game back, no such thing as blowing out the cobwebs. Straight into it, 2 try assists, great kicking game, field goal to win it. But overall, this was a great effort by both sides, really. And my final takeaway is actually to the Dolphins. This was an incredible effort. This is their first time ever playing at Bluebet Stadium, where the Panthers have only lost 2 games of their last 20-something. They're missing Gilbert, Flegler. This season they missed Farnworth and Hammer at times. Most recently, they lost their best back rower this year, and Ewan Aitken, and their hooker and Jerry Marshall King. and they still came to Penrith and played for 80 minutes and just didn't quit and played for each other. And so I thought that was a really special performance by the Dolphins, which is unfortunately they didn't win, but certainly they can be very proud of that effort against the Panthers, who weren't full strength themselves, Winnie, but because they're so successful, we don't really sit there and go, oh, the Panthers did so well with 5 of their origin reps rested. We just expect them to be that level of greatness. So they're kind of victims of their own success in that manner. But either way, mate, how did you see this game?
You're absolutely right. They've got the luxury to rest these players and then still win games like this. And Clarkey comes back and he hasn't played for 2 months and he doesn't miss a beat. And it's a masterclass and sets up the first try, kicks the sideline conversion in off the post. And when we had +6 in the 6.5 first half, I'm like, no, I don't need this. And then the very next Panthers try, I said this will go in off the post as well. And a dead set, the next one is a sideline conversion that fades the opposite way and is in off the post as well. This is a game that goes to golden points. So I could almost, point to both those bounces and both those kicks and say that goes a long way towards ultimately winning this. But talking about the dominance of Penrith and how they can do it no matter who's there, I'm just going to look into the crystal ball and I'm going to say, okay, cast your mind. We're 2 years in the future, right? And we've got all these teams in the finals. And the Bulldogs are in the finals, and their best 2 players are Matty Burton and Liliami Kikau, former Panthers. And the Dolphins are in the finals, and they're led by their best player, Isaiah Katoa, who is a superstar, who was too good to wait in the wings for Penrith, so Penrith couldn't keep him. And the Warriors are back in the finals, led by their best player, James Fisher-Harris. And the Tigers are finally back in the finals, and their best 2 players are Jerome Luai and Api Coruscant. And the Panthers are still in the finals. And it's like the Panthers have lost all these guys that go on to be the best player at other clubs, and yet the Panthers are still the best, is my kind of final point. But I don't want to give as much credit to to the Dolphins as you did, because I actually think, yes, this was a double-digit line. It's great to have an easy best bet win. It was 18-12 at halftime, Dolphins in front. So there's never really a sweat about the +6.5. A couple of beautiful touches from the Hammer, who did back up from Origin, as did Kaufusi, as we'd expect, only played 15 minutes. But awesome to see the Hammer out there again for the Finns and wreaking havoc, and the Finns playing positive footy and building a lead. But when you are up, ultimately the Dolphins get a penalty goal and another try in second half. When you are up, that's right. And when you are up 26-12 and you're playing a team that is missing 5 rep players, you have to win. It doesn't matter that, but it's Penrith and it's in Penrith, so, winning's a bonus. Like, maybe going into the game a win would be a bonus, but not from the position the Finns were in. The Finns had to win that game. I mean, the bookies just got this one wrong, I really believe, because the line was, 12.5 when we previewed on Thursday, and we knew Yeo and Edwards were out, but there was still a chance Luai, To'o, Martin could play. And then they all got withdrawn, and the line moved like a point at most. It was still 12.5 on Dabble today. I still tipped it on the Dabble app. I said, we're game day, and we know that all the Origin players are sitting out, and you're still getting 12.5 about the Finns. Like, they can win this game. How does that make sense? You look at them on paper, there wasn't that much difference between the sides, right? And you didn't know if Cleary would be perfect. Of course he was, and had the final decisive moment. I'll tell you another insight, not to be the guy that says, this is what I would have bet in live betting or whatever. You can always play that game. I was watching this game and I sensed this comeback. I'm actually going to talk about a tip I would have got wrong. I don't really do live betting. I feel like that the vig on the odds is even more reduced, and the mechanics of it you can't get an instantaneous bet. It's just not really my thing. But at halftime, when the Finns were up 18-12, and again, going back to the fact that the Panthers were massively understrength, it just didn't look like the Panthers had that same danger and talent to be able to wrestle the game back. And I felt like the Dolphins knew how important it was and what an opportunity they had, and the Hammer looked untouchable. So the Dolphins are going to win this. Like, what's the live odds? And the live odds at halftime was the Dolphins were a 1.5 point underdog. And I'm looking at it going, geez, I even get Nathan Cleary field goal insurance. So I could play the Dolphins and I could get a 1.5 start, like on top, because I'd already played first half line, right? And I think they're going to win this. And then I went, I don't usually live bet. I'll just leave it. I'll be happy if my boys win. And They build the lead, 26-12. I'm going, geez, I should have just backed myself there. Like my instinct just said, take the Fins. And they end up losing in extra time on a field goal. But of course, Cleary kicks it from 42 meters. So it's a 2-point field goal. So that actually would have lost. So I didn't see that comeback coming. I know people won't be that surprised by this score. Or if they are, they'll be surprised at how close it was. But the truth is, the Fins should have won that. It's an opportunity massively that slipped through their fingers. And I go back to like a Canberra game that the Fins lose in Golden Point where they should have won that one. And I don't know if the Dolphins are going to make the 8 this year, but if they don't, they'll definitely regret days like today.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, they were an opportunity to win. Maybe it's the lens of the situation where the Panthers are so dominant, so we don't give them the credit for coming back. Instead, we go to the underdog and say, well, it was impressive that they almost won. And again, that is because Penrith are victims of their success.
And because a few people have commented it, I also thought with about 4 minutes to go when the Fins were on the Panthers line, that when the ball was thrown to Katoa on 5th tackle, that he almost forgot to take a field goal. Like his mind was just like, come up with the right option, put a kick to the corner and let's have a contest here. It's almost like he forgot about the option of a field goal, which he definitely should have taken when it was 26-all.
I would have loved to have seen him gone for the field goal there. I think that's probably his inexperience, maybe being a 20-year-old half, and he'll learn
in one point, I actually said out loud, they're too far out. When Penrith played the ball 40 out, 40 plus out, and there was still 2 minutes to go in the first period, I said they're too far out. He won't have a shot. Straight to Cleary, bang, and straight down the middle. And that's balls. That is the Iceman there, because if you miss that, it's a 7-tackle set back the other way. There's enough time for the Fins to get in position and score. But you felt if Penrith got one chance, and in this case it was a half chance, and it was all they needed.
Yeah, it's a low percentage play for a lot of halfbacks, but not Nathan Cleary. He's nailed him from there in the past as well. Game 6, mate, one I'd rather not talk about, but we need to. Manly beat my mighty Gold Coast Titans 38 points to 8, and my prediction for this one was Titans at the line, which was a 7.5-point head start. Started off fantastic, aside from goal kicking, really. Felt like the Titans were in control. They were shifting that footy. It was natural play. It was exciting play. And I think that they almost got a little bit frustrated that it was only 8-0, and they felt they should have been a little bit more higher on the scoreboard for how much control they had in that game. And from that point, it was a combination of the Titans went away from what was working really well, and Manly, maybe they were a bit slow starting and started to click into gear. But the game flipped on its head with both of those factors around the same time there. And once Manly got momentum, to their credit, they didn't let it go. They've got enough experienced spine members, Luke Brooks, Daly Cherry Evans, to just manage the game. And that's exactly what they did. They managed that momentum. Titans completion rate 90% in the first half. It dropped to, I believe, below 70% by full time. And I hate to say it, but it just reminded me of the Tigers game where we just beat ourselves in a lot of areas. And I'm going to sound salty, but I want to put this out here. Every single time the Titans would make a break and spread it wide, Manly intentionally came offside to make the tackle to prevent a try. Now, my evidence for this is the Titans had 7 line breaks and Manly had 8 set restarts. That is the first time this year, surely, that a side has had more set restarts and line breaks in what was a tight contest at that point. I thought the Turbo one was particularly bad. I mean, I know that the Titans kind of had a small break and they were attacking the try line, and Manly only had to get back a meter there. But never in the past 2 years has a player held someone down after a line break and it been a set restart. We've seen much less ones sent off for 10 minutes there. So I did think we were a little bit upset. I'm a little bit upset and angry, but that being said, Manly were the far better team. I'm not going to say that was the excuse. I'm not going to say that's why Titans lose. I guess I just wanted to point out a few questionable things that went against us, which upset me in this game. But from the minute 13 onwards, you have to give full credit to Manly because the Titans were attacking really well and they didn't score a single point past that stage. And that was Manly's doing. So very good from Manly there. Final takeaway, mate. I want to go back to an analogy I actually told a friend, and this one might go a little long, so I'll try to keep it as short as I can. Last year, I was trying to lose a bunch of weight, and I got down to 89 kilos, and that was my goal, to be in the 80s. And then I just, because I got so close to my goal, but I really hadn't achieved anything yet, I slipped back into bad habits and started to almost celebrate achieving something when I hadn't achieved anything yet. And I think that's what happened to the Titans here. They won 3 in a row. They felt like they'd achieved something, and a lot of bad habits started to creep back into their game. And I don't know, that analogy just works to me. They got close to where they need to be, but not quite there. And then, for better words, started to sip from their own Kool-Aid, I believe. So we beat ourselves in a lot of areas, but Manly were also brilliant, I thought. I want to know how did you see this game?
Yeah, I think that's a fair call about a bit of complacency, which you can't have going into Brookie on a Sunday arvo. And there isn't a lot to analyse in this game, but, as you said, it's worth mentioning it was 8-0, and then the Titans are outscored by 38 points straight. So early on, you're thinking the Titans are going to make a game of this and that Clarkey's collector's looking very shrewd. But Manly got in front before half time, and I felt like once the game turned, then the Titans weren't really willing to do the tough stuff to hang in there. But I was highly impressed by Manly. They've done this a couple of games now, and it's not against strong competition. And we know that Manly can be accused sometimes of beating up on the lesser sides, but you still can only beat who's in front of you. And your most damaging forward, Ola Kuatu, was suspended for this game. A lot of teams are going to miss, their best forward in a game. Manly, you barely would have noticed. In fact, as well as Turbo running right. I mean, Carl Lawton was awesome playing second row in this one. And you're right, it was a bit of a helter-skelter game. Like, it is actually surprising the Titans only finished with 8 points because they did make a bunch of line breaks and Manly had to scramble, and there were long length of the field runs both directions. And maybe the margin gets extended because a couple of times Manly was actually able to turn Gold Coast over and then take it back the other way for a length of the field try, or if not a try, length of the field run, tackled, and then a shift and a score. So it just goes back to the Titans being an inconsistent side that's not out of finals footy level yet, and being a bit flat. And if Des had the answer for how to beat Manly, it wouldn't have mattered if the application and intensity wasn't there. And whereas for Manly, they clearly did want to stick it to Des, or at least not let him get one over them. That interesting stat that the Titans have the best record against Manly, winning rate. What is it? They've won 6 of the last 8 over Manly, or was it at Brookie?
Oh, so all-time Titans win. Manly are in our top 3 for our best percentages of for and against, with their top 3.
Yeah, I remember they said it today that something like that the Titans have actually upset Manly or beat Manly 6 or 7 of the last 8 times. If that could be right, whatever it is, maybe someone in the comments can correct me. But if anything, that's why Manly was a little bit more focused in this one. And they really make that charge now at the right time. With Turbo back, getting games under his belt, having a field day today, Manly's strongly positioned in the top 8.
100%. We've got Michael Driver on Instagram. He was at the game live today, mate. I know he's a big Manly Sea Eagles fan, so congratulations on that win too. And Ryan says he was also on the Titans and it was looking good early. It was, but Manly, to their credit, played an awesome brand of footy in the dry conditions of a Sunday afternoon, suited them perfectly. Game 7, Cowboys beat the Bulldogs 20 points to 18. My prediction in the preview show was Bulldogs plus a half a point at halftime. That ultimately gets up there, which made me happy. I thought it was a patient half from both sides. Yes, it's seesawed, but both sides held their nerve really well. In the end, I thought the Bulldogs did show their quality. Like, we do know them to be a defensive side, and I'll go as far to say they're a defensive juggernaut in this competition, which is weird because we don't look at the Bulldogs in such high light, but really only Penrith Panthers have better defensive systems than them. And they held the Cowboys to only 1 try in that first half. And that actually came off an unfortunate forced error by Jacob Kraz. In terms of goal line defense, their scramble, their infield defense, everything was superb. Second half, equally as close for the majority. I just think the Cowboys were a little bit more desperate. And that was another thing that we talked about on the preview show. We know the Bulldogs are this settled side that defend really well, but they've still got to work on the attack in their away record. And we know the Cowboys are going to be desperate, and they do have a poor record at home. In the end, it was the Cowboys' desperation that got them over the line there. I think the sin bin really hurt the Bulldogs, as did some of their discipline in that second half. And although I was tipping the Bulldogs to win if I had to have a lean, I'm not surprised at all because you do look at this Cowboys side on paper and it's stacked. And they are capable of beating any side when it goes their way. And I thought a lot of today's game did go their way. So full credit to them. Final takeaway for me, Winnie, unfortunately for Bulldogs fans, they do drop slightly in my books now. Because we're in 20 rounds into the season and they only have 1 away win. Let's say we get into the finals, Bulldogs finish in that 7th or 8th spot, and 5th or 6th as a Queensland team. You know what I mean? You want to have more experience winning outside of your comfort zone of Sydney. And the Bulldogs, yeah, that's they're 1 from 9 in away games this year, which just isn't good enough after 20 rounds, mate. How do you see this one, though?
If the Bulldogs finish 7th or 8th and they play a 5th or 6th place Queensland team, it's most likely going to be North Queensland. So then you could say the result today decides who might be home in that prospective clash. It's very, very possible. And I thought the Dogs lost this in a few moments. Again, goal kicking. Burton misses a couple that they were wide, but not full sideline conversions. And the Cowboys didn't miss a kick. You know, it's 3 tries each, and the Bulldogs actually kicked 2 penalty goals. Curiously took the 2 when up 2 late, you know, which I always question. You want to go from a lead of 2 to 4, and you end up losing by 2 points. So those 2 that you gained didn't help you at all. Maybe you go for the try, you win. On Thursday, I said I would have played the Cowboys -1.5 if I knew all 5 Origin players were going to back up. But I felt like the odds that all 5 would be sweet and pull up all right after one of the craziest, you know, modern warfare games we've ever seen would be less than likely. Even Brisbane, who needed everybody, you know, Cobbo couldn't pull up. But of course, then it was announced that all the Cowboys are going to, and the line came out to 3.5. And the Dogs, to be fair, ripped in, had a halftime lead. So good pick by you with the halftime line. And I think you're right, second half. I don't think that the sin bin cost the Dogs the game because the Dogs came out, penalty Cowboys, set restart Cowboys, penalty, sin bin, professional foul, fair call, I suppose. Wilson grabs Vilea, goes in the bin. Cowboys do score and hit the front in the time that the Dogs are in the bin. But when Wilson comes back on, the Dogs score next. It's that Burton to Kiraz combination, and the Dogs get back in front. And so then I think the game is decided in kind of a couple of moments. The Dogs are on the attack, up 2 points, and Hayward kind of has a gap, beats a man, and it's just a regulation put down. I know he gets a knee to the head, but that actually happens after he already dropped the ball. I felt in that moment, if it's a try, Dogs win. If it's no try, Cowboys win. Like I just felt that was going to decide the game. And he goes to slam it down, and it just starts to lose his hand. It's one of those ones where in a different game this season, that's been given a try, but not tonight. In fact, they slowed it in slow motion in the bunker and legit showed his hand still on the ball and touching the grass. But then the bunkers said we're sticking with the on-field. I think he probably did lose it. It was a weird one because the defender then came in and kneed him in the head, Fini Furiaki. Somehow Hayward getting a knee to the temple didn't go for an HIA, which I thought was bizarre. But it was a penalty of the Dogs. And again, I'm not taking the 2 when I'm already up 2. But that it goes back to the fact that if Burton had kicked one of those earlier misses, making a 4-point lead, a 6-point lead is perfectly logical. Okay, anyway, the other moment that decides the game is where we got to give some credit to North Queensland because you hang in there, you're within a try the whole way, and with 10 minutes to go against a really good defensive team, you're just looking for that moment. And of course, you're hoping you might get a set restart or a penalty or something, but you can't bank on that. You might hope to force an error, but you just never know. But in fact, on the 4th tackle, it's Dearden searching across the line and then just ducking under Marnie attempted tackle. And you can probably say, you know, that's a terrible miss by Marnie. It costs the Dogs the game. But it's Dearden the ability to just beat a man and burst through the line and then finds the 18-year-old Purdue who scores the winning try. You know, so to come up with a 50-meter long-range try against a good defense in the final 10 minutes of a game is an awesome play. And I've kind of questioned whether Dearden's got like a lot of those plays in him. So I got to give credit where credit's due that he won them the game. I'm always looking at Drinkwater's going to be the guy to do something like that, but Dearden clearly capable as well. It's a huge win for North Queensland.
Mate, 3 quick things if I can on what you've said there. Whenever I see Tommy Dearden play well and take control like that, I think what could have been if they kept Hammer at fullback and moved Drinkwater to 6 and moved Townsend on a year earlier. Number 2, the knee to the head. It's almost lucky for the Cowboys that was a late knee. If that knee came like half a second earlier, that's a penalty 8-point try because he's lost it that close to scoring that. And of course, both kicks would be right in front. So it's very lucky the knee came late. And my final point was,
or even if it didn't have to be late, you're absolutely right. If that's a try and he slams it down and you foul someone after they score, it's an 8-point try as well.
Yeah, but I think it was because he'd already lost it at that point. So if he was like still coming down with the ball.
Yeah, but if he scored, the knee would have still hit him in the head, the same spot, and it would have been an 8-point try. So again, it just goes back to the fact, if Edwards could have grounded that ball, the Dogs would have won that game. But this is what it comes down to. And look, I actually, as sports music god says, it probably was an accident. Like, he didn't get 10 in the bin or anything. But I suppose there is a duty of care. If your first contact to a player can't be knee, like, into head, you've at least got to probably get the hands there first. And sorry to cut you off. What was the final point?
Final point was, I think it just shows the class of Tom Dearden because he has been in Origin camp with Reed Marnie all week. So if anyone knows you can't go high on Tommy Dearden, it would have been Reed Marnie who would have been doing all the opposed work against the Maroon side, and he would have been making those tackles on Tommy Dearden. So it shows Tommy Dearden's class to come up with that in a clutch moment. Alrighty, Winnie, I reckon let's call the show there, brother. That is all 7 games recap for you guys with our best bets recapped as well. We want to say thank you very much for joining us a bit later on this Sunday night. We'll still continue to go live even if the game does kick off at 6:15 p.m. We will see you next on Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. with our round 21 Savage. Thank you very much from myself one more time, Winnie, and over to you to close the show.
It's good to have some exciting games to talk about and a few winners as well. So we're on a nice little roll. I think since we brought in the Clarkey's Collect, you're doing exceptional. You're going back to, Origin 2 and 3 we've got right the last few weeks, mixed matchups on a winning streak. So it's all positive. There's still a fair way to go. So we just try and keep building on that. And we appreciate everyone that's along for the journey with us. Have a great week, guys. We'll see you on Tuesday. Lego.